Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Coffee Class with Young Screenwriters. Today, we are going to talk about something that we have needed to talk about for a while, and that is film school versus no film school, which is a big conversation. So, we're going to kind of be looking at it from a writer's perspective, and then just like, if you want to write and do other things in the industry and just your future in the business, is it worth it to go to film school? Um, and for reference, I went to film school and Adam and Theo did not. So that is going to be the source of this conversation. I need to post this link in the Discord, but I just closed Discord so I wouldn't be distracted by my AI art maker.
The real answer is no film school. The website has written about us twice. So that really just tells you everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's interesting because John teaches at film school, but we're saying no film school. But I went to film school and Avi went to film school. We're a mixed bag here.
Well, and hybrid too, like online, because I've taken, running the feature online, but I've also taken online specialty on set courses as well. That's stuff that they don't teach in film school.
That is true. That is true. So we're all over, and I think that there's a lot of different things to consider, and there is no easy answer, yes or no.
No. All roads lead to Rome.
Indeed. Hopefully. Well, Hollywood, right?
Well, no. Well, either dead in a gutter in Hollywood or not, right? Yeah.
We hope Hollywood.
And we're also going to get into the sort of the classist hierarchical structure of the film and television industry and why it crushes people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's topic 2.0, because really the answer is $200,000, right?
Yeah.
Do you have $200,000, or are you willing to go into debt for $200,000? Great. If not, you can learn everything else. Oh, but then there's also the thing about networking and relationships, professors like you, Alexie. You got a lot out of your experience.
Yeah, I think that. So what I thought would be interesting is there's an interesting version of today where we like go head to head, but I think that what would be interesting instead is if we kind of start with yes and then we go into no. So let's talk about, first off, what do we mean by film school? Because it can mean a few different things. There's schools like AFI, the American Film Institute, that are just like straight up, you're going to go there, you're going to learn film stuff. I think it's like a shorter program. And that's that. You're learning film. But then there's also film school, like you're going to go get an undergraduate degree in fine arts or arts, bachelor, either a BA or a BFA. And you're going to major in film, which means you're also going to be taking a bunch of other courses, right? There's film school that's graduate school. So it's a master's degree usually. And there you're specializing in, you can get pretty specific, but a lot of times you can pick screenwriting or film or whatever. And those are the real film options. So dedicated institutes for just film, there's bachelor's programs, and then there's master's programs, and all of those kind of fall into the bucket of film school, right?
Which one did you do? What was your...
I did a BFA at NYU. So I got my college career, my 4-year college career was at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, getting a BFA. So it was halfway like regular college. You had to like hit some other prereqs and things like that. You had to like take some, not generic, but you had to take like some sort of science and some sort of humanities is how they did it. It was pretty loose, but you did have to take real academic stuff. And I majored in film. There's a film and television production major, and that's what I did. And then I ended up picking up a double major in history. Yeah, I would say that fellowships don't count as film school. I would count that in like the no film school side.
Industry
But
side.
yeah, that's like the just getting hands-on experience. I mean, that doesn't mean that it's not super educational. It just means that for the sake of this conversation, we'd say that that's more non-traditional than
And I would also
wow.
say fellowships, depending on where, can be as high impact in terms of networking and relationships. And there are lots of, you'd be surprised the number of successful people who have done those, especially the Sundance ones.
Absolutely.
Screenwriting. Those are really good.
Which we can talk about those as time goes on. So yeah, so I got a BFA in film, and that was my experience with it. And then in addition to that, I just like read a lot of screenwriting books. So I did some teaching myself stuff. Adam, what's your film education history?
Well, I got an English degree, so I did not go to film school, but I was writing screenplays. I started getting into it around 2009, 2008, and I was doing terrible flash fiction in high school, fan fiction. It's just terrible stuff. But
Wait, was this Hey Arnold?
that was even earlier. I don't even count that.
What was your fan fiction that you wrote in college? Was it Lord of the Rings?
No, not in college, before college.
Oh.
I'm younger than you, remember. 2008 was high school for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Theo. Just coming for the jugular.
Just going in on that.
Spitting you in the face, yeah.
Wait, Adam,
No,
what year did you graduate high school?
2011.
Okay.
But I read Save the Cat in 2010. That was the first screenwriting book I read. And when I finished it, I was like, oh my God, this is easy as shit. I'll do a screenplay for all of the 8 archetypal stories, right? In a year. And I'll just pump these out. Yeah. And that didn't happen. But my point is, that was my journey. And then I slowly just sort of, through trial and error, read lots of books, wrote terrible things in a vacuum. And then in college, I started meeting other writers and people who were more talented than me. Started getting into seeing plays or playwriting, sketch comedy, and like interacting with other artists who were doing different things like actors and writers. And like for me, that was where the light bulb started going on and being like, and also just growing up, developing taste and consuming better stories. Eventually, I feel like I know what I'm doing now, Also just reading a lot of screenplays and writing a lot of screenplays. Like a lot of the books were very confusing to me before I wrote 4 screenplays. Like I remember I read Robert Mckee before I understood anything, and I didn't get any of it. I understood it intellectually, but I didn't understand how to actually apply it, especially like his scene diagrams and stuff. Like, yeah, but like, how does that connect to like good ideas and like the cinema experience? And then after I'd written a bunch of screenplays, I reread it. I was like, oh yeah, I agree with most of this. This is great advice. But I had to like go through the experience of like finding my voice to make the books worthwhile. That makes sense? Kind of frustrating.
Oh, totally. That's something that we talk about too, is like, writing a screenplay in between every book you read. We can get into that too.
Theo looks younger than all of us. There we go.
That's true. There you go.
Theo, what was your experience? Right? Mine
was chaotic. So I actually went to a specialty high school that was an arts program. So I think I graduated with like 32 arts credits. So I majored in dance, I minored in drama. And so in that period of time, I acted, I directed, I did a lot of work. And originally I wanted to be a novelist, and that's what I thought I would do. So I wrote some books, and during kind of all of that time, I started working on editorial. And really I was self-taught. I mean, the best course I ever took in school toward editing was a business English class, where I really learned the very, annoying specific nuts and bolts of sentence structure and literary writing. And I started working for a variety of publishers and agencies as an editor. I did that for quite a while, very extensively, to kind of a degree where I lost a lot of my passion for prose because of how much of that work I was doing. And as much as I love like helping writers develop their own voices, it drowns out your own voice when you're doing it too much. So when I moved into agenting, because I really wanted to kind of uplift others' voices, and it's just a really difficult job to be in if you're not in a really big agency. So I was with a boutique agency, 100% commission. It's really hard to make money. So when the pandemic hit, that was when I decided I wanted to focus on my own writing again. Could not write a novel for the life of me. So I was like, I always wanted to write a screenplay. Started, had no idea what I was doing. And that was when I found writing feature, which was honestly the biggest help I could have had. I think I'm writing my 6th feature right now. I'm feeling really confident in my story ideas going forward, finding my unique voice and my brand and all of those things. And in terms of like I've taken other online courses, for example, script supervision, which is only really taught in these kind of underground online places that they don't teach in film school. And maybe they've started, but at the time when I took my course, they did not teach these kind of on-set positions in film school. So now there are these online courses, and I learned a lot about screenwriting through that as well, because understanding production and how a scene is filmed and what the limitations are really kind of pulled me back in what I was going for. And instead of writing something that was really aspirational, it was more like, now I understand what is the best scene, what makes for a great scene, and what is logistically possible. So I think that's a really important understanding as well, is knowing not only story, but how making a film or a TV show works.
Totally. Alexie, you're muted.
I muted myself because no matter how much I shut this door, the dogs somehow slam into it and get in, and they've done it like 3 times. So I know they're very passionate about being in here. I was gonna say that I forgot a little bit about pre-film school. I was mostly doing prose stuff, like what Theo and Adam were both talking about. I guess a lot of us started in prose and just like doing like creative writing classes at my high school, which was not really, it was mostly just like you go in a room and you write and then you read it aloud, and that was kind of the whole premise of the class. And it was
terrifying.
I know. it was it was what we had. And and then I decided that I wanted to do film school, and so I read Save the Cat, and I read Your Screenplay Sucks, or like 1,000 Reasons Your Screenplay Sucks, or something like that. And then also I found Sid Field. And those were like the 3 books that I could get access to at the time. And I was trying desperately to write an intro script to go to NYU, and that's what I used. And then when I got to NYU, John was like one of my first classes, and someone was like, "What do you think of Save the Cat?" He was like, "I hate it," and I was like, "My God, I'm screwed." I thought that was a fabulous book, but yeah, it was. I guess that's all of our journeys, all kind of different places, and then now we're here.
The second half of those, like the most important part. Like I don't mean the second half. I mean like once you've broken through the initial inertia and you start like applying lessons to your first writing, right? Like the screenwriting books you read after you've already written screenplays are far more useful.
Yes.
And whether it's a course with John or whatever it is, like the information that you're taking in when you're in process is so much more useful than the information you take in when you're like, well, how do I do this? That's why I think everybody, like, you should just start writing in whatever form you can and apologize later,
Yeah,
exactly.
to yourself, because that's who's really going to hate your work later.
Right.
Yourself.
Right. There are so many writers who have this attitude of like, well, I have to learn the structure and the craft first. And, that is true. And yeah, that's really important. But it's so much more important to just learn how to show up, I think. And there have been periods in my life where I've been hyper productive, and there have been periods in my life where I've struggled, and the most important part was never the knowledge. My knowledge has always been increasing. I've always been learning more things. It was always connecting my voice to something I was excited to. Those are the hard lessons. And some people go through film schools programs, and that's an environment that nurtures that, and some people don't.
For sure. Here's a quick question. Cassandra said, "What is John's beef? What beef does John have against Save the Cat?"
He's a big one.
It's more, I think, that John actually like really values a lot of the book, and he was friends with Blake, and like and he thinks he's a good guy. But the thing that John really, really doesn't like is the kind of like, is it glib way that Blake approaches Act 2, where he calls it fun and games. Right. He treats it like it's like, oh, it's the fun and games. And in a way that's true, because, you know, when you're watching a movie, that's like where the trailer stuff is happening. That's like where the exciting stuff is happening, is Act 2. That's where a lot of the like all of the big moments are coming out, and it's the fun of your movie. But as the writer, it is certainly not fun and games. John calls it the desert all writers must cross. It's the hard, like arguably, and pretty consistently, it's like one of the hardest parts of your script to write. When people get stuck writing, they get stuck in Act 2, right about at the midpoint, most times. So, I was just looking at Michelle's comment.
I know, I'm giggling.
Really funny.
Because I've
sorry.
also had dreams like that. I've had dreams like that too, and I've always just been like, ugh, like, and then I'm all like annoyed for like a good half the day.
Good. Tell him. Say, God, dream Adam.
I had a dream that I was in New Zealand when the nuclear apocalypse happened, so it was fine. But because this was supply lines broke down, food was not coming into the island, so I had to be abducting sheep for like this bunker that I had built, so I could like ration meat for the weekend.
Farmer Adam.
Well, I was stealing from the shepherds. It was not a farm. I was stealing from the shepherds during the nuclear apocalypse.
Like a fantastic Mr. Fox.
So,
but let's get back to this point, because this is a good thread.
About Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so can I add another aspect of Save the Cat that I think is not helpful, that I think John has also commented on once in our conversation with us, was like, it's not just the glibness of like Act 2, it's this idea that it's this sense of arbitrary rules that Blake writes about. You cannot ever not have this beat on page 15. Or you can't ever not have this thing on page 20. Like it's a way of thinking that's extremely calcified and inflexible.
And limiting.
It's limiting. Yeah, because you're making decisions to have something land on page 5, not because it's the best, not because of a story motivation, but because of your arbitrarily as the writer being like, oh, producers want this on page 5. And like that type of thinking fucks you up, especially down the road. And that's one thing I think Robert Mckee does really well. Say what you will about him. Has this whole thing called principles, not rules, where he's sort of like, these are just conventions that you can learn from and draw upon. There's always flexibility though. Like, and I feel like that's important in a screenwriting. And the other book that John likes, which I also like, is The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler.
I have that.
It's when if you don't know anything about Joseph Campbell, that's the best way to learn the whole hero's journey, thing. And another thing that's great about that is you're not Joseph Campbell's logic and motivation for myths and like why protagonist, all of that stuff. There's a clear logic of motivation between why you make story choices if you're following like a Vogler's or Campbell's point of view. Whereas with Blake Snyder, it's, well, you got the characters got to arbitrarily get their fun and games out, right? There's no sense of like you're connecting yourself to character on a deep way. And like that's the really important shit you have to, when you're learning as a writer, is to put yourself on the page and to not think inflexibly. Sorry to be rambling.
No, but also in the character decisions, if it's fun and games, then we kind of lose this ability to work through how the character is connecting their flaws and their motivations and their needs to each of these choices. And I think you lose that if you're working on something so rigid and so vague. Really, I feel like it's just vague.
Did you say vague or vague?
Vague.
Is that the Canadian?
I think so. I think there's a.
Let's give you an out.
Oh no.
Hi, John.
Vague.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Rest in peace, Blake Snyder, who we're
Yes.
trashing right now, who
We're
died.
not trashing. He
Listen.
I will say though that the thing that it did, the reason why I'm really, really glad that I read that book before I went to NYU and before I took John's class is because there was this learning curve that I saw happen with everybody else in my class when John introduced the idea of structure, where there was just like this intense resistance. People were like, absolutely not. There is absolutely no way that all of my favorite films truly hit these beats, that all of them truly have an inciting incident about this long into the movie, that all of them have this final fight at the end, that all of them do this. And then immediately you get the but Tarantino, you get but this person did this and blah, blah, blah. And you get all this like really, really intense resistance where people are like, I'm going to break all the rules. And all my favorite films break all the rules. And it's like this whole thing where you end up drawn up a wall and then realizing you're wrong later when you start actually looking closely at all of your favorite films and you go, oh, wow. Yeah. They do follow this because it's like an organic story shape. It's not necessarily as strict as what Blake Snyder does, but it's like I think Blake said like something dies on page whatever. It could be a house plant, it could be a grandma, but somebody's gonna die on this exact page. And things like that don't necessarily are probably more true than you would think, but are not like the law. And yeah, I got just kind of like having come into learning about screenwriting while understanding like, okay, there is a structure, and I already had like my internal freak out about like, is this real? And like looking it up and trying to figure out if all my favorite movies fit it. At that, starting with that behind me was very, very helpful for going into learning more about screenwriting. So I will say, like, I did get a lot out of Save the Cat, and it did make me think a little bit more about, like, I mean, the title of the book, Save the Cat, it was talking about, like, if in the very beginning of your story, you have this character save a cat, and then they're a complete piece of garbage for the rest of the film, we've developed some sort of a, like, empathy or understanding of this person in the beginning because we saw them save a cat, and now we're willing to go on the ride with them. And there is a really interesting lesson in that about, connecting to your characters and about how we're willing to follow people that we understand. But yeah, overall, it's one source. Never base your whole theory on one source.
I find that structure in general also just it's a way to help you make sure that you're writing the best story. Because if you wing it and say, okay, I'm just going to write the story and see how it comes, you could be totally missing an opportunity to add conflict, to add stakes, to add drama between the characters, whatever you want. And having something like this, which is basically a proven audience experience, right? We know that the majority of people who watch film enjoy a movie that has this cadence. And I mean, if we look at this line, which is narrative structure as a whole, it's enjoyable because it hits all of the pieces of human emotion that we want to hit. And it doesn't all have to look the same. You could have 1,000 movies following the same structure that are totally different, but they will be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then here, I want to circle back up to this, which Cassandra said, the desert is very aptly named. What does John recommend instead? And Adam kind of got into this a little bit before already. I will say that I've never heard John like rave about a screenwriting book.
No.
Like, he loves books about story, but like beyond that, he loves books. He calls it like, you got to stay like intellectually curious. You have to keep like your intellectual curiosity. I could almost guarantee that if John was joining us today, he would say, read some of the good stuff about storytelling, read The Writer's Journey or whatever it is, and then read stories, read nonfiction books, like consume things, read novels, just keep reading story and trying then to like take it a step further and understand the story that you just read. And that has been John's approach. I know he said it before, but when John went to Ohio University for something else, and he wrote short stories that he published. And then he went to AFI, the American Film Institute in New York, after he went to Ohio University. And he was taking film classes there. And the film classes were basically just about how to write a scene heading and like about the formatting of scripts, not how to write them. And he would go to the AFI film library and read scripts. And he said he would go in there with a yellow legal pad. He would read the scripts and he would write out the major things that are happening every single day. He'd go through a new script. And in the end, he started seeing the patterns emerge of how he was like the different most important scenes were all kind of happening around 20 pages in. Something changed the protagonist's life forever. And then over here, this happened. And they resolved this flaw. And that, before all these screenwriting books came out, that's how John got started with understanding screenwriting and structure. And it really forms the basis of how he thinks about story and learning about story today.
Yeah, so just to answer minor confusion in the chat. So there are some people watching through Facebook and there's some people watching through YouTube. And I don't think the people on YouTube can see the Facebook comments.
Oh.
So apologies, some of our answers don't make any sense. Also, it's even more confusing because Alexie and I, when we comment, both appear as young screenwriters.
You can tell if it's Adam because he says hella. And
also, I add the proper comma here casually. That's Alexie.
Introductory clause.
I'm being a dick.
Adam majored in English. Can you tell?
That's what I got. You got film professors who could help you get agents.
There you go.
Which honestly,
networking is so important.
It's so important, but there's just lots of ways to do it. Like there's no straight path. I sold my first I sold my first option through a competition at my school. So if I hadn't gone to that school, wouldn't have happened that way. So there's no linear path. But who knows? I could have been more successful if I went to film school, or less successful.
Or less successful.
Yeah.
You know what?
Oxford comma.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the Oxford comma.
Necessary.
Big fan of the Oxford comma.
Yes. Not even a debate. I don't understand where this debate comes from because
it bothers me on a really philosophical level.
My father and I had a discussion about this about a month ago when he sent me a message and he didn't have an Oxford comma. And I was like, we got in a conversation about it. And I was like, wait, you don't do that? It blew my mind. I was like, how can
it's terrible?
Anybody choose consciously if they know the difference and then they choose not to? That's
chaotic energy to me.
It's a mess.
It wasn't. It was a Catholic school in the 70s.
Does he also do the two spaces after a period? Because in that case, it can be excused.
Yeah, I know.
Because that's just wrong. And yeah. So let's see. There was I was gonna mention something else. It was another point about the original.
Me too, Michelle.
It's all over now. Yeah, I mean, I think whether you go to film school or not, I think that the message is to take advantage of the different connections that you have wherever you are, and that's a huge part of it. And that's what film school is good for if you go. Why don't we talk for a sec about, is film school the right choice for you? Say you are deciding right now, you have to decide, do I go to films? Do I go get, for the sake of this conversation, do I go pay a lot of money in some capacity to learn about film? So that could be graduate, that could be undergrad, that could be any kind of expensive film program. This is not like a couple $100. This is like, I'm going to be throwing down probably upwards of $10,000 to $200,000 to study film. Is that the right call for me?
I have a amendment we should make. Sort of like, I think there's a different answer for screenwriting programs, directing programs, editing programs.
Okay.
I think yes for the hard skills like editing and directing. I think no for screenwriting. I personally don't think in 2022 people should spend that type of money to learn screenwriting when they can gain all the skills other ways that are much, much cheaper. And that's not just a selfish plug for our own course, but it's really sort of sense of like, you can learn by setting up your own writers group. You can network other ways. You know, it's not, unless you truly have the money to burn. And most people don't.
And another thing that I think about, because there was a time where I was feeling some regret and I thought, oh, if I had just gone to film school, but then I look back and think there were a lot of experiences that I had in my 20s because I was not in university that I would not have had otherwise. And I draw upon those experiences when I'm creating story. Would I be writing, like, would the stories that I am building now be as good had I not had those experiences? And that's something that I don't know. I feel like there is potentially something limiting about being in a structured program in that time of your life when you could be developing life skills.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think MFAs are a little different than undergrad too. Like, right. I think
mm-hmm.
some of the MFA programs are of a more deeper and engaging level for directing stuff, I think, and some I don't really know, but like, I've heard that those experiences can be very different. And if you are, say, not 20 years old and ready to go to college, and you want to have this type of experience, I would highly recommend looking into, like, something you can get hard experience out of, like that you couldn't get otherwise, like on-set experience, for example, is something you get out of directing programs. Like, that's hard to do without making your own expensive short films anyway.
Yes.
And you still probably have to finance those short films in college anyway, so you just use college equipment.
I'm gonna be super straight up. Are you ready? If you're considering a BFA program at a place like NYU or UCLA or something like that, and your parents can afford it and they will cover it for you, go do it and have the time of your frickin' life. If you can do it and go into minimal debt, I'd probably say still do it. And by that, I mean probably, I'm getting so hyper specific right now, but this is what I would have wanted to hear. If it's like only federal loans and things like that, like subsidized and unsubsidized federal loans, those only go up so far. I'm not talking about the Parent Plus loans. I'm talking about you'd probably be like 30 grand in debt or something like that, which is still a lot. Then I would say consider it. If you're going to have to take out buckets of private loans to go to one of those programs in this the way things are right now, I would say
think about it.
Be careful. My situation is that I was in Kentucky. My family is not wealthy, and I did not have any connections. There was no option at the time to go to film school to study film in Kentucky at all. And I was going to have to leave the state if I was going to study it. And so my thought was, I will go to NYU or I won't do it at all, which was a very like all or nothing Alexie at 17 mindset. So I got into Tisch and NYU specifically, and this is true of a lot of these programs, NYU specifically at the time only promised to meet 30% of your demonstrated need. So if it said that your parents were going to be short 50 grand, they would only cover 30% of that was their promise, which is pretty crappy. And then in addition to that, they only do any financial aid for about 30% of the student body.
Wow.
So it is a very expensive school. And I got in and I got some financial aid. It was enough to make it like within the realm of possible, but tons of debt. And I decided at that point to do it because I was 17, and I don't regret it, but I do have some insights now. Like if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have met John. It would have been really, really hard for me to pursue the career I wanted to do in that situation, without just taking a big leap and going somewhere like that. It would have been difficult. Impossible? No, but very difficult. And I don't regret it. But it's a lot of money.
But it gave you a safe space to also just practice and to make mistakes and to experiment, which is really a great opportunity if it makes sense financially, right?
Exactly. You know, it's it was, oh God, Jesus. You know, and by the way, I didn't meet my husband in New York. I met him back in Kentucky. So it was on break because of NYU's scheduling. Anyway, you know, it's very, very pricey, but it's an option. And for me, the experience was so completely different than anything that I had ever been exposed to in my entire life that I think it was really important for me. Like going from Kentucky in a place like where people don't necessarily value art and things like that, and going to like a massive, like the most massive city ever in an art school where people are dedicated to this, and where 70% of the student body is paying for it out of pocket. And it's like this whole, it was a completely different world. And for me, I don't regret that experience, but I think it's important to consider, like, were you already born and raised in New York? Do you need to pay a lot of money to be in like a pretty similar environment? I think it's about like seeking out different things.
And it'll be a while before you can make that money back, even if you got a deal rate out of, you know, which you wouldn't at 24, whatever years old. It's going to take some time to be able to see return on investment in that career.
Yes.
Can I just speak on this point really quickly about acting and directing? All directors should take acting classes.
Oops, I'm trying to pull
100%.
All writers should take acting classes and understand how actors think. Everyone should take acting classes. Mm-hmm. It's really important, I think. And, you know, honestly, there's so many great directors who act and understand how actors. It'll make you a better actor it'll make you a better director to learn how to act and really understand an actor's point of view. So like fundamentally, like, yeah, it's really hard it's not about like the level of craft to learn both. It's about the time and energy you have, right? Like whatever you feel more passionate about, you should put most of your energy on. But like you should really learn both if you can. I mean, I think everybody should take acting classes. Everybody.
And I would say that as for this question, can you do both? They both require in-depth study. Yes, you can. That does not mean that you're going to necessarily be like a Spielberg and a Leonardo DiCaprio mashed into one. Like it's going to be like, but they are like peanut butter and jelly, you know, they go together. They're dealing with a very similar thing, just on different sides of the glass. And if you're going to direct, you need to know what it feels like. So I've mentioned this so many times, but they make you take a directing and acting class when you're at NYU in film school, where you're learning how to direct by acting your classmates. You're learning how to direct by directing your classmates. And so you have to act when somebody else is learning how to direct. And I think at an absolute minimum, if you really want to focus on directing, then be in your friends' films. Like act in your friends' stuff to first off help them get made and to contribute, but also to be directed and to realize what it feels like. I would say that's like the bare minimum that I would recommend is acting for your friends.
Because you've got to learn how, if you want to direct, you have to understand how to direct people. When I was in, you know, my specialty program, the first time I directed, it was one of those like boom moments where I was like, wow, like, okay, I really enjoy this. But I don't think I would have been able to do what I did the way I did if I didn't also have that background. I ended up acting in my main thing that I directed because my actress got sick. So sometimes it's good to be able to act a little bit, or at least understand the basis behind the craft.
yeah, you don't have to become an actor to be a good director, but it's really helpful to understand how actors think and process. And a great book actually that helped me back in my time of need, is Directing Actors by Judith Weston. This is a classic.
She's phenomenal. She's
Well,
the
that's
best.
another
Everybody should
NYU
know her.
reading. Yeah.
This is an amazing book. I also think all writers should read this. It helps you with some of the language, and it's a great 101. If you're an actor, you don't need to read this, but it's good.
The way she sees the emotional event of the scene, I think, is so critical and to understand, and whatever language you use it, but understanding the emotional change that is happening in the scene as a writer is so important, because you can look at that scene and say, okay, this is what I have to convey emotionally. This is my subtext. Now, how do I do it in the most interesting or compelling or conflictual way possible?
So here's a quick question. A big draw of NYU that I hear constantly is the value of the network. Is there some way to do that without selling my firstborn child to go to university? So, yes, you could network without NYU.
100%.
Can you go to NYU without selling your child? Probably not. That really is just a matter, like, okay, quick financial situation. The first year you apply, you cannot appeal for more aid. The second year you can. So if you stay, you can appeal for more aid. I did that and was successful, got a little bit more aid, and also was able to talk with people like professors who I like connected with to get more aid. Was it enough that I was not taking out stupid amounts of debt? Absolutely not. But that is an option. You can appeal for more aid later down the road. It is not going to be a lot. So if you apply to NYU and they're not giving you a big financial aid package, that is going to be what it is. Your options are going to be to go find scholarships elsewhere or to just go into a ton of debt. So unfortunately, that's that answer there. But for networking outside of a college, I guess Adam and Theo, this is really your domain, since my connections come from NYU.
Yeah, for me, I moved to New York, and I'm from LA, and I will admit I am born with some industry connections, not like ones that have really made a big difference for me, but like I grew up around people who just worked in film and television. So like my godmother was a music supervisor on loads of television shows. Like I know people who are, I've always known, like a neighbor of mine wrote Lifetime movies in the 90s and 2000s. Like so geography is destiny, partially. So I grew up I was born in LA and grew up around there and went to high school there in Pennsylvania. And when I went to New York, I met a lot of actors, and I started like making things. And like,
how did you meet actors?
Combination of dating, meeting, like taking classes. I took sketch comedy classes. I just playing, you meet people in life, like you go and you live your life and you do things, but
you have to put yourself out there to do that.
Yeah. And also don't underestimate networking events. Like there are lots of great and helpful. I have some friends who like got a lot out of women in film in New York. There are lots of really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff in major cities like that. And like I know I'm saying geography, and also, but here's the thing: that's less true now than it used to be. Like online communities like this are a way to meet people. Like there are, and especially in the era of the Zoom meeting, the Zoom general meeting for everything, no matter what, like all meetings will be virtual for the first time you meet somebody anyway. Who, if they're a film industry connection, if it's like a producer or an agent or whatever. So that can be a little less true, but I still think just making friends as you would in life with people who are also artists, with people who are maybe not screenwriters, but like people who are working visual effects or doing other things. Like I have a load of friends who like are making things up and coming up with me, and we're doing things, and some of them are more successful than me, and they're people I know in my network, Date actors. Don't date actors. I'm just joking. No, but it has been helpful, honestly. I met some great people through that. But
that's what it's all about, I think, is meeting people. And you can do that online too. If you become good at learning how to meet people online and make it a genuine connection, I think is the most important thing. Don't meet people with the intention of, I'm going to get something out of this relationship. If you can really foster something authentic and unique, people will want to help you, and then you can help other people. There are, Coverfly has a career lab, which is, I think it was $30, where they had a ton of events. They had people doing Q&As, and they had a Discord server where they, a bunch of people met other people, and I've met a ton of people that way. Just different mixers. There's online mixers. I'm not in a major city, so I have to work a little bit harder sometimes. And another way that, that I meet people is being on set. It's not, I wouldn't say be on set to meet people. That's probably not the best way, but, you meet actors, you meet directors, you meet, everybody's got an idea, and you could do background on a movie with an actor who in 2 years might need a project to sink their teeth into as an actor. And if you're friends with them and they like your writing, that could be an opportunity to say, well, here's what I've got. That's all it takes.
For sure. Absolutely. I think that, so to, I guess, be a voice advocating, not advocating for film school, but kind of like saying, like, in defense of it, there is value. Like, most of my connections, not like, oddly, Adam and Theo are not from NYU. That's not how I met these connections. And Avi, I didn't even meet while I was at NYU. I met him through John later. But what's nice about film school is that there's so many opportunities to connect, not with necessarily people who are going to make your film today, but with people who can create with you. And it's kind of like, the more connections you have, if one of you has success, then that's going to lift up your whole group. So like, if Adam sold something tomorrow, that would be a positive for my career, even if it's small. For me to have a friend who just sold something is good for me too. And I think that that's also like an attitude that's really important to have when you're going in to make these connections, is thinking of it like, literally, if good things happen to people in your network, then that's good for you. You're not in competition with them. It's all positive. And then I'll say the other thing about the network at film school is that you're sort of, there's absolutely no guilt about, for me anyway, guilt's a big one. There's no guilt about going to events to like strengthen it and networking and stuff, because it feels like that's what you're supposed to be doing. There is something very nice about being in a program where this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're being told that you should dedicate time to building this project. You're being told that you should go to this event, that you should meet these people, that you should work with these people. It's nice to know that that is like your main thing that you should be doing, rather than doing it on your own. Like, kind of, when you go at it alone, you have more flexibility, but also sometimes people really thrive with that structure.
Absolutely.
If this is my dream,
I just answered it in the chat.
But we should go into it, because I think
let's go to it.
Here's the thing. What do you want to do? Do you want to be in a writer's room? Because if you want to be in a writer's room, you have to go to LA.
Well, that's true. But if you want to write features, you don't have to go to LA.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It's very different.
Yeah. I'm in Kentucky right now, and that has not stopped any meetings, because all of them are online. And a lot of times the only time that it comes up is they'll say, like, are you in Brooklyn? Or like, where are you at? And then you move on. And
also, most people lie anyway. Oh yeah, I'm LA based, but I'm living in Oregon right now. They don't say that I'm living in Oregon right now. They just say, oh, I'm LA based on their Zoom.
I can get there.
Yeah.
Let me know and I'll be there. It's and Adam's response was here, and I'll just pull it on up. Pre-pandemic, yes, you did have to move to LA or New York. Post-pandemic, no. Yep. That's more true than it's ever been.
Unless you want to do TV.
Yeah, TV is a little bit different because that's where, I mean, you have a physical, and they did do virtual writers' rooms during the pandemic, but I think that as soon as they were able to not do that, everybody went back to in person and TV.
Yeah, they did do virtual writers' rooms for a bit. But yeah, because I mean, it's a really simple reason. The way that writers' rooms work is it's literally like a 9-to-5 job, probably with longer hours. But you know, you actually go into an office, write, and go home. That is how that works. It is an office job. So you have to be where the jobs are, and that is mostly LA. There's some in New York, like especially all the like late night shows and stuff like that. There's
some
a
in
whole
Atlanta.
Yeah, there's some.
Atlanta's a big hub.
Some in Burbank, California.
But yeah, you gotta go. You gotta go where they have the writers' room. So that's why. But for features, you're not doing a 9-to-5. That's a contract. So if you get the contract, a lot of times you'll have taken meetings with the people. It used to be that they were more required to be in person. Now, not so much. But if you're about to sell it, they'll probably fly you out. And that's how that goes.
Yeah, we gotta say, Tim's great. Is there like a discussion of him not being a good actor recently? Is that a thing?
No,
he's a fantastic actor.
This guy asked, Skewness asked.
Oh no, I know, but I didn't know if there was something going on behind.
I think he's pretty I think the question is more, is he overrated because he's a sex symbol to some young people? I think he's a very naturalistic presence, and he's never seems like disconnected from the moment. Like, he's a very skilled actor, and I think some of his roles are better than others. Yeah, versatile. But Call Me by Your Name, he was incredible. Like, Beautiful Boy, that movie, I don't recommend it because it's very depressing, but like, that was an amazing performance. He's capable of great performances.
And he did
really good in Dune.
Yeah,
he was great in Dune.
Considering there's not a lot to work with, he was he made that work. So I think he's a great actor. There's so many actors who are worse.
Even in The French Dispatch, I loved that little.
Yeah, he was
part
great.
Of French Dispatch.
He was great.
Oh, that was phenomenal.
Great.
So we have a question up here about what kind of online networking is out there. So there's young screenwriters. You can join our Discord. We have a writers group, and we do events. We do open events for anybody every single Thursday where people submit their scenes and we read them out loud. And so that's a way to connect with people. We also have like a more dedicated writers room where it's a smaller group where we're working on features together. And then beyond that, where are some other, I mean, I know a lot of people hang out in the Reddit, the subreddit screenwriting thing. There is a thing of screenwriting Twitter, which is to some a cesspool. But you know, other people find some benefit out of it. Where else have you all met other creatives online?
Doing like reading and writing, like doing feedback for other people, I think is a great place to meet. I've done a number of workshops. So the Coverfly Career Lab, which I linked in the private chat there, was one of them. There was another one that I did that I think Screencraft ran, and it was $3, and they had a ton of like amazing directors and writers doing talks on their process and whatnot. It was great. And then everybody chatted within the thing. I think just, you know, get on Coverfly, get on the kind of the major platforms, and that's where the news is going to come from. You're going to see, okay, this is where we're at.
Also, film festivals.
Yeah.
Great way to meet people. Some people, and also you don't know what relationships are going to be beneficial to you. That's just a piece of advice I'll offer. You know, somebody who's got nothing going on right now could be an executive in 5 years. You never fucking know. You
exactly.
know, you really don't know. So be nice to everybody you meet at these things.
And be helpful. Just help people. If you help people do things, you know, people are going to be there for you too, and you can grow and learn together.
Yeah, the internet can be pretty negative too sometimes.
It's hard.
This is a good question. One more question. When you get out of film school, what happens? The same thing that happens when you finish a screenplay and you don't know what to do. You make the next thing, you push, you get a lot of people to read it. You push your network.
Woo.
You really do. You have to constantly. There's no linear pathway, so like it's hard for me to like, because like what I would
You're a
do if I
salesperson.
finished this. Yeah, exactly. You got to be a salesperson for your own thing. You've got to be your own advocate. You've got to get as many people to, if you're trying to sell something, if you have a script that you really believe in, that you really want to get energy, you need to get it read by as many people as humanly possible who you think would like that thing. Don't just arbitrarily just shotgun it out to people. Like actually, I mean, querying is classic, but important too. It's a good skill to have, but you should never do it like blindly. You should always target people who you think would be great. Like, and also with an acknowledgement of like what is the game? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, when you send something to a representative of a production company, what is the end goal? Is this a production company owned by an actor? Is this a financier? Is this a director? If you're sending it to David Fincher's company, do you want David Fincher to direct this? Like, you actually have to think that through. And so few people actually do. Like, if you send something to an actor, you want it to, first of all, you have to assume that it's not going to get through because they're gatekeepers. And you have to acknowledge that, okay, this is a pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid are the people that actually make decisions about like, hey, we're going to put money into this. We're going to back this project. And at the bottom of the pyramid are the script readers of production companies at agencies, whatever. And yes, you can get your stuff through that system, and you want it to be read. So I'm not saying you can't do that, but like really maximize your network so you can go around them when possible. Some of the most exciting moments I've had were when I knew an entertainment attorney who liked a script and gave it to Daniel Radcliffe, passed, but like still like that was, I didn't have to go through a production company that an actor's person, like I got it right to the person, and it was because I had an advocate. So part of networking is all about finding those advocates to get through the system, to get to the middle tier, the top tier, right? Not through some intern who's in the who's in 10th, second year of college, who doesn't know anything, and they're just stressed about getting through 30 scripts. I've done that, and I don't think I was very good at giving coverage. Actually, I wasn't a very thoughtful script reader. So I'm rambling, but my main point is when you're done with film school, think really intentionally about like what is this script? Who would it be for? Make a master list and like target people intentionally when you're querying. Be very thoughtful and go think outside of the box. Like honestly, entertainment attorneys, in my opinion, are some of the most they're not thought about, but they know everyone.
They're great.
They know everyone, and they really like the idea of being producers. Like they want to be attached to things. They want to like,
and they
be
can
involved.
be illegally.
Yeah, and they can be illegally, right? I'm not saying. First of all, this is not legal advice. Please, I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me. I'm just saying.
No, I think entertainment lawyers can be attached. I think it's only agents who can't be.
No, I was just saying I'm not giving advice legally.
So I will say though that after you leave film school, if you leave a place like NYU, you do immediately get into like the alumni group. So there's tons of events for you. NYU has a production center where you can still go to things and do things, and I'm pretty sure you can still use it. You can still like use the space. When you leave, the idea too is like, say you go out and you write your script, you can go back and send it to your favorite professors and say, what do I do? And then if they like it, they might send it out to their connections, or you might send it to your friends that you made. So there is it isn't just that like when you leave film school, you're in the same exact spot as somebody who's never left film school, because you have not just the network that you've built, you have your school's network, right? And that's how any of this stuff works. So, NYU in particular has like internal boards, like where people are like talking about script stuff. So there is that. There is something to that is valuable because they want it to be. John says NYU Tisch offers a no credit course certificate. Any thoughts on this on a resume? First, it would depend on what you mean. If you're doing like an editor job, then a resume might matter. For screenwriting,
No one gives a
or
shit.
no one cares.
It's
It
all about
would
the script.
just be for
The
you.
script is your resume.
Yeah. It's like when I'm applying to, like, if I'm going to try to send out my script, at the very beginning, someone might have said, like, this is a script from a Tisch alum. And that might have helped me get sorted to the top of the queries or whatever. But now it's much more relevant to, like, plug in, like, a couple, like, awards or, like, a credit or something like that. That kind of thing gets a lot more push now. So
they're looking for awards. Like,
Yeah.
I listened to a talk with a manager who, it was kind of funny the way he said this. It was like, how do we get your attention? He's like, tell me that you won the nickel or something. So querying is frustrating. I think it's really important to understand when you're going in, you are going to get blanket rejected by the majority of people. And if you do not have literally the best script that these people have ever read, you're probably going to need something behind you to be interesting, like a quarterfinalist in a contest. That's just the reality of the day. Big thing, never attach anything when you're sending out queries, or have a link to your screenplay or anything. They will delete it. They legally cannot look at them, because they could potentially get sued if they have another idea already in progress. So you cannot send anyone a screenplay until they have requested it. So that one I think is very important. And if you want to find people, what I would do is sign up for MDB Pro for a little bit and find out who's producing and who is agenting on projects or films that you really loved, and cross-reference from there and see if they're accepting queries.
Also, I'll just add that you want to be mindful. Again, I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to repeat myself intentionally. You want to be mindful of, like, who you're sending it to with the intent, and know how things are bought. Like when a production company buys something, they're either going to try to, they don't actually put money towards the production until they've attached actors and directors and a writer together. Like, you're just a piece of the puzzle to get money. Like, money will not happen without an actor who can bank the movie or a director who can bank the movie, right? And that's one of the reasons why you, as a screenwriter, sending your script through, will never direct that movie, because of the structure of that, right? Like, they're trying to package something to the people who have money to say, hey, we've got so-and-so. This is the dream team. This is going to be awesome. And here's a great script. It's never just that. And also, the fact that you're a first-time screenwriter from there produced is a huge detriment, right? Like, they need a great director and a great actor, or the script, and all the script together. Like, I'm not saying that you need those things all the time, because there are exceptions, but, like, that's the general way things go.
Well, they could hire another screenwriter to do a rewrite of your script too. Like, that could happen.
Which is why when a rep reads your work, their initial, the average rep is not going to be, oh my God, we got to make this. They're going to be, great sample. I'm going to put you forward for some jobs for things that are already going on.
Yeah, your spec script may absolutely not be the one that gets made. That might just be your calling card to get into open writing assignments.
So I guess the kind of another way to think about what Adam was just saying too is that, when you're trying to sell your script, it's not about how good you are. Like, I mean, so getting in through the door, getting your script liked is important. It needs to be very, very good to get liked. But being good is not enough for a sure investment, because it's a business, right? So that's how come they're not going to necessarily they're not going to say, all right, I have a few $1 million and I will throw it at a writer who's never been produced, who's going to direct this, and they've never been produced as a director. That's too unsure for an investment, right? They are going to need to attach someone who's not only good, but also is a much more secure investment for them. So it's not like, oh, you're not talented and that's how come you can't be attached as a director, or like, oh, this script isn't good and that's how come we're not willing to take a risk on it. It's literally just that these producers are very risk adverse because it's a lot of money, and they need to make sure that it's a sure investment. And I think that that's something to really remind yourself of I've been explicitly rejected for a job because I didn't have a credit, which is incredibly frustrating. Like told straight up, like that it was going to work, and then at the end they said, we got a new mandate that we can't take on any unproduced writers at this time. And it was so frustrating because they'd read my work. They knew it was good. We'd had great meetings. We talked about the script. Everything was great. Then right at the end, they said, we can't do it. And it's not because you're not good. It's not because they didn't like you. It's because they need sure investments. It's a business. So it's important to remember all these different little things.
On that note.
Well, to clarify real quick, Theo was talking about IMDb Pro. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's great. It's so, I mean, for every film that is in there, in IMDb Pro, you get to look into the back end and see, who produced it, what are their contact information. Not everybody's contact information is in there, but, if you're interested in a certain actor and you wanted to, send something to their agent, you could potentially find that information in there. Or just comparing like who's making what and who's doing what. If you, for example, you wrote a Hallmark Christmas movie and you want to know how to get in touch with these producers, you could go on there, see, who's involved in these and make those connections. And you can make those, you don't have to email them. You could become friends on Twitter in a respectful way, or, there's a lot of ways to meet people online these days.
Theo, you've been the recipient of queries for fiction. So do you want to do it real quick? I know that you already kind of talked about, you already gave the top down, but real quick, do you just want to list do's and don'ts for us?
Yeah. So what I would say is, one, it's got to be really tight. Like it's got to be, hey, if you have a personal connection or something that you can bring along, like, maybe you like their dog or something, that's not a terrible idea to humanize what the query looks like. And, then you're going to give a short summary of what your work is. So you're going to have your log line, and then potentially you could have like a very quick paragraph that goes over it and why it's exciting. You could do something, this is a quarterfinal, it's in this competition. I did this, I did that. Would love to have more discussion with you. I think you want to keep that to the shortest possible email that you can do. That will show that you're professional. And that you know what you're talking about. And if you can have any accolades that you can put in there, that's going to make people take you just a little bit more seriously than someone who hasn't. And it's not to say that contests are necessary, but if you have nothing, no credits, no experience in the industry, and you're just blank sending out the screenplay you just wrote, sometimes it really helps to have that. But I think just think about what you would want to see. Like if you're getting 100 queries a day, say, from different screenwriters, what would you be looking for in that email? And what it is it's a great story and a great logline.
And also awards.
Yeah, awards.
Like a lot of people are like Nichols semifinals in the subject line, and then they just skip it and they delete the other ones and they just read that email. That happens sometimes. And some people actually read everything.
So there you go. This is kind of, I think this is right, Theo? Yeah. Query. You start with personalized intro, then have your log line, a little bit about you or the story, something like that, and then basically ending it with like, I thought it would be a good fit for you if you like, I have the script or whatever. So that's to get at Huckleberry's question here about if you're not allowed to send them the script, how do you get the request? You're not allowed to, out of the blue, literally send the full length script. Querying is when you are just writing to someone and basically trying to get them interested. So what you can and what you should do is say, this is my log line. And yes, winning an award is a good way to make them pay attention to your email, but that's just how it goes in general. You never send the script straight up because they will get in trouble. They won't open it. Yeah.
They won't open it.
So that is that.
Yeah.
It's a hard road. If you're going to query, just be ready for a lot of rejection. It's not always a bad thing. These people are looking for the first reason they can find to say no. So your job is to make them look and read your query and say, I don't just want this screenplay, I need this screenplay. And that just goes back to writing a really great script.
Mm-hmm. Although just to add in a reminder, they want to find great material. Like they're looking for great material because that's their job. It's just they want to do it in the easiest way possible without. I mean, imagine let's just say imagine you're a manager or whatever, or a rep of some kind, and you get 500 emails every single day from first-time writers. Imagine you're in that situation. You, the writer, I mean, the people in the chat right now, actually, imagine that. And then write an email to yourself in that situation that would stick out of the slush pile. That's the game.
Yep.
That's the game. That is the game.
So, since we're coming up on the end, the final, should you go to film school, yes or no? In the yes situation, we have, if you have the funds and it's not a financial hardship, sure, why not? Have fun.
Yeah.
It's great for making connections. It's really nice to have dedicated time and space. It can be a really amazing experience for you, especially if it's all new for you and if you're coming from a place that doesn't have a lot of connections. You do learn a lot. It's a really fun experience and a way to meet a lot of people. In the no category, we have, if it's going to be a massive financial burden, then it is not necessary. Theo and Adam, do you want to give a quick summary on the no?
Spend money on your own films if you have the money. That's my opinion. Like, make stuff that's cool, be awesome, meet a lot of interesting people, go out and do things, be active, be an artist and meet other artists and take what you do seriously. I think you'll get as much out of it and probably spend less money.
I agree. Invest in your craft, invest in your career, and that's what it's all about.
And you can do cheaper things like writing a feature, possibly.
Hey, for $147, you get John's NYU screenwriting class.
Yeah,
and that was
it's all the same stuff. Yeah. But that's blatant self-plugging. There we go.
There you go. And I will say though that our students are doing some cool stuff now. People who have taken the course, getting into Netflix programs and writers' rooms and doing a lot of really awesome stuff, and it's been very cool to see.
Good films and stuff. We're excited.
Faux show.
So what are we doing next week, Alexie?
Next week, we are doing Sandman. So that is going to be super, super fun. We're going to get back to breaking stuff down. Adam, are we doing the pilot or the whole thing?
We'll drill down on the pilot, but I think we should have a spoiler section of the talk where we'll cover the pilot and then we'll do a spoiler section because I have a lot of opinions about the whole of it. A lot of them negative.
We have different opinions on the bottle episode.
Oh yeah, we have different opinions about the bottle episode. I think we have the same opinion about the end. Did you finish it?
No, I got this. Yeah,
the last 4 episodes. But here's the thing: it's important to watch things that work and then don't work. It's important to watch things that are flawed. It's important to watch a lot of stuff.
Things that got made and why they got made.
That's right. Well, yeah, and again, this got made because of a famous writer who's been on the adaptation train. And also, Sandman has an interesting adaptation story, which we will talk about because
the pilot is phenomenal, though. The
pilot is phenomenal, but there were almost 7 attempts to adapt Sandman in the last 20 years.
Really?
Oh yeah, all of them failed. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was attached to the most recent one. In 2011, he tried to get it made as a movie.
Wow.
Yeah, did not make it.
How is it compared to the comics, Adam?
I'm a huge fan of the comics, and I don't read comics, but like Sandman was like a big deal for me. It was like the first graphic novel I like actually read and was like, holy shit.
I think it was the first graphic novel.
Yeah, it was the first good one. But how does it compare? It does some things better than the comic, but very few. And it does some things as well as the comic. The first 6 episodes in particular are incredible, in my opinion, except for 1 or 2 elements that bug me. I'll just say Pat Oswalt.
You're going to hear all about it next week.
Yeah, but that's a spoiler. And but then it completely drops the ball on others. It's interesting, but I think it's like all of Neil Gaiman's adaptations are 70% great and then 30% horrible. And it's such a weird combination of like, wow, that was amazing, and that was dog shit bad. How did those things go together?
Neil Gaiman is watching this, just like.
Sorry, he's gonna hate me, and I'd be
Neil Gaiman
heartbroken.
said, "F you, Adam."
I'm a huge fan of his, so I'd be. I don't know if I'd be heartbroken. I don't give a shit. Yeah.
I'd be a little sad if Neil Gaiman just randomly knew me and was like, "Ew." Like, oh my god.
He seems like a very nice guy. I do know somebody who knows their assistant. Amanda Palmer and Neil Gaiman's assistant is there together.
Do they still share an assistant?
Well, it was mostly Amanda's assistant, but like when they were living together in New York. Yeah, I don't know if that's still the case. In New York, they had an assistant.
I heard that they had a bit of a tempestuous breakup. So
they got back together.
Oh, they've gone back together.
They got back together. Yeah. Please don't. It's stupid. But that person said he was extremely full of himself, but very nice. And I think
I think he's allowed to be a little bit full of himself.
He is a little. Yeah, I'd be full of myself if I won that many Hugos and or whatever. Anyway, I've loved that. He was extremely arrogant, but like really nice guy.
That's so funny. What a combo. That's probably the winning combo, honestly.
It's gotta be. Yeah. You gotta have an ego. You cannot be a writer if you don't have an ego.
That's right.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much for coming out, everybody. I'm going to try to do an outro, and I've never done it before.
Let's see what happens. We're gonna have a plug for our courses in the outro. It'll be elegant and wonderful.
And I think that you can probably still hear us talk, so we'll see what happens.
I'll just
All right. All right. Bye, everybody.
Adios. Bye. See you next week.